But we begin tonight with potential danger for Democrats pushing for health care reform in the United States Senate. Senate Democrats scored a major victory Saturday night in their vote to allow debate to go forward on health reform. Democrats needed every member of their caucus to stay in line, and they did. That, it turns out, was the easy part. The hard part, getting every one of those senators to stay on board to allow the final vote on health care reform. As things stand tonight, that will not happen. Tonight, 4 members of the Democratic caucus are pledging to block that final vote if the public option that's in the bill stays in the bill. Perhaps, as a result tonight, there is growing talk about compromise. This deadlock in the Democratic caucus has reportedly led Majority Leader Harry Reid to begin searching for 2 possible compromise solutions. One is the triggered public option, offered by Republican Senator Olympia Snowe of Maine, and the other by Democratic Senator Tom Carper of Delaware. At this point, the pressure is on Harry Reid to deliver on the reform that he's been promising. After Saturday night's vote, Senator Reid issued a statement reading, quote, "What just happened now has never happened in the long history of the United States Senate. For the first time ever, the Senate will debate a bill that puts health care decision in the hands of the people." Actually, I think the history's a little different than that, because not only have we been here before, but Harry Reid himself has been here before. In 1994, when I was Chief of Staff of the Senate Finance Committee and at the floor manager's desk on the Senate floor, when we introduced the health care reform bill, Harry Reid was a second-term U.S. Senator. Hillary Clinton's health care reform bill came up for debate on the floor of the United States Senate, and it came up by unanimous consent. Want to see?
Madam President and members of the Senate, tonight we begin debate on health care reform legislation. We will undertake no more important task in this Congress. What we do will affect every American family.
I was sitting there right behind Mitchell, off camera in the C-SPAN frame. That was Democratic leader George Mitchell. It was August 9th, 1994. Historic day in the Senate, bringing health care reform to the floor of the Senate for the first time. The result turned out to be a complete political wipeout for the Democrats. The Republican strategy was not to add anything to the bill, but primarily to simply strike out certain passages of the bill. Even Democrats couldn't support some of these passages of the bill when they were held up to public scrutiny. Republicans began by passing amendment after amendment. They all passed by the identical vote of 100 to nothing. Even Teddy Kennedy, who helped write portions of the bill, voted in favor of Republican amendments that stripped some of his work out of the bill. After about a week of this, the Senate began its August recess, and the bill was never seen again. We have been here before, and the question of whether this year's effort will meet the same fate could come down to an upcoming vote that's not even on anyone's radar yet. The Senate will begin its debate on health reform the first week of December. That gives them exactly 15 work days to complete work on the bill before the Christmas recess. The Senate has never done anything complicated in 15 days. Recently, the Senate passed a non-controversial extension of unemployment benefits. There was no opposition. The final vote was 98 to nothing, but it took a month on the Senate floor and 3 cloture votes to get to the final passage of the bill. Now, to make matters worse for health care reform, probably in mid-December, the Senate will have to stop completely in its tracks before December 18th to take up the urgent and absolutely necessary matter of raising this country's debt ceiling. The debt ceiling is essentially America's credit card limit. It's how many trillions of dollars we as a country can charge to our credit card and pay later. This vote cannot be delayed. If it is, the country will default on its debt, and all hell will break loose in ways we have never seen. So this must be passed. That means the health care bill will have to be pushed aside on the Senate floor. That'll cost the Democrats 2 days of floor time in the United States Senate, at least, and it will serve at a very difficult moment to remind the country of just how deep our deficit spending hole already is. A reminder that the Democrats would prefer to avoid when they are voting to increase government spending on health care. Saturday night's vote to allow the debate was an easy procedural vote. The next few weeks will determine if we're going to go back to the future of 1994. Joining us now is Democratic Senator Sherrod Brown of Ohio. He is a member of the Senate Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions Committee. Senator Brown, thank you for joining us tonight.
That was one optimistic set of assumptions there, Lawrence.
Senator, you weren't there in 94, so I thought you needed a little refresher.
I was in the House in 94, but let me go back further in history to 1965. And I talked to a gentleman by the name of Byron Krantz in Cleveland not too long ago, who was a lawyer, and the young lawyer in the Senate in those days. And he said Medicare was very, very hard to pass. And, you know, the difference between 1994 and today is shows like this one and the Internet and the activism that so many Americans have shown. With public options still in the bill because of the Oberman show and the Rachel Maddow show and the people on the Internet and people speaking out and a lot of activists engaging with their House members and senators to push these to push this progressive agenda. So that's one of the big differences from today from a decade and a half ago.
I completely agree. It's made a real difference in the dynamic from the left side of the political dynamics of this thing. Senator, the Senate bill has a new tax in it that wasn't in the Finance Committee bill, which is an increase in the Medicare tax. We now have a bundle of taxes in the Senate bill that no one campaigned for, never mentioned in Barack Obama's political campaign. Not mentioned in yours. How do the Democrats defend in 2010, having voted for these, assuming you get to vote for these on the Senate floor and pass them all, you will have passed a package of taxation to pay for this bill that no one campaigned for, but you're going to have to defend in a campaign in 2010. How will you do that?
Well, first, this bill, unlike the Bush tax cuts, unlike the Iraq War, unlike the Medicare privatization, in fact pays for itself, will actually pay down the deficit several $100 million over the next 10 years. That's number one. Number two, it's a mix of taxes that are generally pretty fair. I don't agree entirely with the way it's done. I would like a surtax on people making over $250,000 or $500,000 a year. I think that would be the best way to do this. The Medicare tax is only for people that are upper income. The tax on employer, the excise tax, if you will, on benefits, I don't agree with. But I think this package overall takes us in the right direction. So I think we're, when you said 15 work days, it's a lot more than 15 because we're going to be working weekends. We're going to be working into the night. We need to, and Harry Reid knows this, we need to stay here and I'm in Cleveland now, but we need to stay in Washington starting Monday and do whatever it takes to get this bill passed in the Senate in December and to the President's desk prior to the State of the Union in January. And that's absolutely our commitment.
Okay, Senator, I'm going to throw in every day between December 1st and December 25th. I'm going to give you 24 full work days. Okay. I'm going to have you working till midnight on Christmas Eve, and it will be impossible to pass this bill in 24 days. There's going to be, as you know, there's going to be hundreds of amendments to this bill. From the Democratic side, there's probably going to be over 100 amendments to this bill. It will roll over into January. How do you handle the calendar in January when you're also going to be intersecting with appropriations bills that have to be passed, or the government will be forced into shutdown if they're not passed?
Well, we do, as you know, Lawrence, we do a continuing resolution to get us through the appropriations bills. I mean, we obviously want to do as many of those individually because it runs the government more efficiently. It allows us to plan better for the future. But we're going to do what we have to do, and I have confidence we can. I mean, I've never go back to when we wrote this bill in the Health, Education, Labor, Pension Committee. We had 11 days of markup, longer than I've ever seen. We processed on any bill in my time in the House or the Senate. We processed hundreds of amendments. We passed 160 Republican amendments. It had a bipartisan flavor to it, except on obviously the really big questions like public option and mandatory issue and all mandatory enrollment and all of that. But I'm still optimistic. I think that, I know it's easy to be pessimistic about this, but we're committed to doing this, and the overwhelming majority of the Democratic caucus is committed to this. We know the president's success or failure of at least the first half of his first term depends on this. It's the most important. Next to my vote against the Iraq War, this is the most important thing I've ever done in my profession professional career, and I think I'm not speaking for my colleagues, but a whole bunch of them would say the same thing. And our commitment's there. The Republicans are going to try to delay everything. That's their role, they think. They're the party of no. But when I think of it this way, Lawrence, more than 400 people in my state, in Cleveland, in Toledo, in Dayton, and Youngstown, 400 people every day lose their insurance in this state. I'm committed to fixing this.
Senator, just quickly, is there any deal breaker for you in this bill? I mean, it's a tough time to be a loyal Democrat because you guys guys like you have been on this from the start, and you're seeing the holdouts get these concessions at the last minute, big concessions, money concessions to their states. Don't you sitting there in Ohio start to think at a certain point, wait a minute, shouldn't I be a holdout? Shouldn't I, waver at the last minute and grab something for Ohio in this deal?
Yeah, I mean, we're always doing. I talked to the Rahm Emanuel tonight and David Axelrod about not about this bill, but about some major things in Ohio. We're